let me go back to that seller note. What if you were able to, how low can your SBA financing going if you get the seller note higher? Let's say if seller note goes, yeah, I love the business and I'll give you a 50% seller note.
Yeah, well, then it's pretty much right. I mean, that's he's assuming as much as the debt as possible. So, we're happy to do that, of course. I mean, it lowers our risk, obviously, and it's a lower loan for us. But yeah, I mean, that strengthens our deal, right?
And his seller note is subordinate to the SBA loan?
That's right.
Yeah.
Seller notes are always subordinate to the SBA. Yes.
Right. And it's still not a deal unless, let's say he's offering seller note at 3%. And it's pretty attractive, right? Or 3 to 6%. But the debt, the cash flow has to cover the debt payments on the SBA loan and on the seller note.
Yeah. So a lot of times, John, what I see is somebody will structure a transaction. They'll come to me with an LOI, or they'll come to me not with one executed, but one that they're thinking of submitting, right? They want to make sure it's bankable. And I've got a little saying, congratulations, you've structured a deal that doesn't work. Because and unfortunately, I say,
thank you, man. I'm going to borrow that because within the last week. Thank you, man. You structured a deal.
Yeah, congratulations, you've structured a deal that doesn't work. And I unfortunately have to say it a lot, but that doesn't mean that ultimately that we don't get the deal done, because then you have to go back and retrade. There's a lot of,
I'm going to come back to that because, like, how does that happen? Oh, by the way, that deal doesn't work with the bank, and I need to renegotiate with you.
Yeah. Like, so yeah, we'll chat about it. There's a lot of talk on Twitter, as you know, LinkedIn, searchfunder.com, all, the major spaces.
M&A spaces. Yes. Yeah.
M&A spaces. Like, what are the terms and conditions? You see it all the time. What are the terms and conditions of the seller note? Does it have to be on standby? Does it have to be 10 years? You don't even need one. The SBA does not require a seller note in a transaction. So want to get that out there first. There's nothing that says you have to.
So what do you mean you don't even need one? What you're saying is, because of the seller, because the SBA transaction, which is guaranteed percentage by the government, there's less risk in there involved. So he doesn't need a.
Yeah. So what the SBA says in their SOP 5010-6, nowhere in there does it say if you're making or you're in a acquisition transaction that the seller must hold a note. It does not say that.
Yeah.
Now, so to be clear, let's say you came in and 10% is equity. So if a borrower comes in and says, I'm buying a business for $2 million and I want a $1.8 million loan, that is eligible. It doesn't mean a bank is going to do it. So there's a difference, but it's eligible under SBA guidelines. So that we're clear. Now
let's use that other business 5 million, because the numbers, we can stay consistent on the numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
So on that $5 million transaction, essentially 4.5 million of that could be debt and 500,000 could be equity.
Yeah.
Right. So 10 and 90. Now, a lot of times when the buyer comes in and says, well, I want a seller note because I want to make sure he stays engaged. I want to make sure he's in there through the transition plan. I want to make sure that he introduces me to the new clients. All the different reasons that the buyer wants a seller note. The seller note and the repayment is determined by the cash flow of the business. If you're paying a 5.5 multiple, the seller note is probably going to have to be really well structured, like a 10-year loan, very low payments, because there's just not enough room for debt service. If you're paying a 3 multiple on that same business, obviously that seller note can be amortized over 4 years. Right? So what I would love the audience to know is whenever they're talking about a seller note, cash flow dictates the terms and the conditions of the seller note. There is no preconceived, you have to have one, and this is the terms and conditions it must be on. Cash flow dictates everything, including the seller note.